We welcome you back to Fresh Outlook. A Senate panel is about to investigate how Apple may have avoided paying tens of billions of dollars in taxes. CEO Tim Cook testified at a hearing that the company pays all the taxes they owe, every single dollar. And that brings us to our next story.
Apple Incorporated CEO is defending the company's tax record at a Senate hearing. Lawmakers say Apple is stashing billions of dollars in profits in Irish subsidiaries to avoid U.S. taxes.
Apple is an American success story. What may not be so well known is that Apple also has a highly developed tax avoidance system, a system through which it has amassed more than $100 billion in offshore cash in a tax haven.
Apple CEO Tim Cook said his company was a major U.S. taxpayer, handing over nearly $6 billion.
Apple has become the largest corporate income taxpayer in America. Last year, our U.S. federal cash effective tax rate was 30.5%, and we paid nearly $6 billion in cash to the U.S. Treasury. We don't depend on tax gimmicks. We don't stash money on some Caribbean island.
Levin's panel issued a report saying Apple used 3 subsidiaries with no tax residency in Ireland.
Apple effectively shifts billions of dollars in profits offshore, profits that under one section of the tax code should nonetheless be subject to U.S. taxes, but through a complex process avoids those taxes.
The cash-strapped government is trying to wring more tax revenue from successful corporations.
America's tax system is broken and uncompetitive. I will not allow that position to be used as an excuse to turn a blind eye to the highly questionable tax strategies used by Apple. The egregious loopholes that exist in the tax code must be closed so that the nearly $1 trillion in untaxed overseas profits can come back to the United States.
Subcommittee staffers said Apple was not breaking any laws and had cooperated fully with the inquiry.
And thanks again to our panel of Dee Dee Benkie, public accountant Edward Garber, and Paul Oster, former banker and credit expert. Thanks again for joining us. Now let's talk about Apple. They have 2 different regions. They've got Apple Inc. here in the U.S., and they also have their subsidiaries in Ireland. Paul, if you can explain to us exactly what they are being accused of doing and kind of give us a step-by-step for the layman, if you in layman's terms, if you can.
Sure. Basically, what they were doing for the retail divisions, they were taking monies, depositing them in Manhattan bank accounts, and then transferring them to subsidiaries based in Ireland so they could avoid their corporate taxes.
Do a lot of corporations do this?
Absolutely. And they're calling Apple on the carpet to shed light on the loophole, and it needs to be changed, but they're not breaking any law. The only area that's a little gray, in 1935, the Supreme Court said that no corporation should use elaborate or devious tactics when it comes to corporate tax.
Well, thanks for the details.
Right, so they knew when they were putting these laws into place that, you know, the CEO of Apple is a very smart guy. The CFO is probably even smarter. And there was always going to be a way for these corporations to hide their money. So they put a very general clause in there that says if it's elaborate and devious, if you know that you're kind of circumventing the tax code, then you're breaking the law.
So you said it's not illegal, Paul,
No.
but is it ethical, Dee Dee?
Oh my gosh. I think it was outrageous what the Senate did. Shame on them for bullying this business. It's a successful American business. The problem's not the business. That's not what we want to penalize them. We want to get rid of the tax loops in the tax code. And that's why I said earlier, I really do think you should eliminate the IRS and then have a fair tax, flat tax, something. But it has to be simplified. And that's what the Apple CEO said. And he's absolutely right.
So they're just using Apple right now as an example. I mean, Apple has even maintained it has contributed jobs and plenty of big bucks to the Treasury, so why are you picking on us?
But what kind of jobs are they giving? They're giving it $10 an hour jobs, they're giving it $50,000 a year jobs. Which jobs are they giving? That makes a big difference too. You could say giving jobs, but what type of jobs are they giving?
I don't think it makes a difference though. I mean, they're a successful business. I mean, what the Senate did to bully them and to make it some show was ridiculous. They really should attack the real problem, which is the tax code.
Well, let's go back to that
complains about it.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, let's talk about that.
Apple didn't write the tax code. They're following the laws that are there. Is it ethical? Probably not. Are they a large contributor to our overall tax revenue? Absolutely. But relatively speaking, we are missing. There are millions, tens of millions of dollars that are left off the table.
So they may be using Apple as an example, but it may shed light, as we said, to all the other companies that are doing this, which may contribute to the U.S. economy overall. I guess that might be one of the overall game plans of the Treasury for doing this.
I think this will be an instance where you will see Congress act very, very quickly, and they are going to change the tax code and the tax laws immediately, probably faster than they've done anything.
Well, the tax laws are changed every year. It's why you have to keep up with it. Go to seminars every year, but no matter how many changes there are, there's always loopholes because everything's made to go around. It's like when you print out new $100 bills. As soon as it's printed up, there's a way to counterfeit it. So as soon as it's done, you could change it in 2 seconds. So that doesn't help.
Congress can work on making it easier and better for companies to be in the United States, and for the corporate tax code, or tax law rather, the tax rate should come down on corporations. It's so high. I mean, there's no reason for that.
Are there any other big companies that have been called out on the carpet on this same sort of loophole, if you will? Anybody that comes to light?
Not to my knowledge. I think they're really, scapegoating Apple here, and shamefully so. I agree.
Because everybody knows the name Apple. That's why you're trying to get the name Apple out there.
Well, what is your prediction, Paul?
Again, I think Congress acts very, very swiftly, and we have some changes specifically for the corporations, offshore monies, and how those monies are kept in the United States as opposed to being sheltered overseas.
Well, what New Jersey is doing for the past few years, when you pay your sales tax and payroll taxes through electronic filing, there's a question: is the money coming from U.S. money or foreign money? So New Jersey's trying to keep track who has money overseas and who doesn't. Right on the form, you can't pay your taxes for payroll and sales tax until you answer this question.
I think ironically, the Senate, they were trying to say shame on you, Apple, but really in seeing this, I think Americans are saying no, shame on you, Congress, for not making the environment better for businesses, and don't bully Apple for being a good company.
So you're saying that you think that Congress is then the person to blame?
Absolutely, they're to blame. But what's good about that is if they're going to start taking the heat, they'll change the tax code, and they'll change perhaps the corporate loopholes and the tax rate, especially the corporate tax rate's just too much.
So do you think there was a poor strategy for Congress to go after Apple?
I do. I think it's going to.
But in the end, it might work.
Yeah,
ironically.
it might work, but there's going to be a backlash, and people are going to say, well, wait a second. Apple didn't write the tax code, you wrote it, and now you're trying to call them on the carpet. And they could have done it differently than the way that they did it. They're accusing them of breaking the law and using tax gimmicks for their gain. I'm a small business owner. If my accountant came to me and said, hey, Paul, I found a way that you can save $100,000 in taxes legally.
And that's the key word.
I would do it.
That's the key word.
Well, this is what I do. This is my business, because here's my accounting joke. What's the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant? A bookkeeper, 1 and 1 is 2. For an accountant, 1 and 1 is 2 1/4, 2 1/2. That's my job. That's my job to help you with these loopholes.
Yeah.
That's my job.
So what do you think about this tax code then?
It's going to be changed again and again, and just makes me have people come to me more and more, because a normal person cannot do their taxes anymore. Even if they buy TurboTax or whatever, they think they could do it, but they can't. So sometimes they leave my office, they come back, okay, you have to fix the taxes that I did. But for the normal middle-class person, it's going to hurt more and more, because the rich people making the laws, that means it's going to help them, not the middle class.
Because they have the attorneys and they have the accountants to make it work, but we still end up losing businesses overseas because it's just too difficult to do business here.
That's what I have.
We create our own problems. The flat tax, or certainly a more simplified tax code and rate would make more sense to everybody.
Flat tax won't work because it destroy the housing market.
What about fair tax?
What's the fair tax? What does fair mean? Like, I want a large refund. A large to one person is $500.
It may not be perfect, but at least it be simplified. Right now, it's crazy.
Well, it's simple as long as you use a computer to do it.
You can't do it without simple to you, but you just admittedly
this
said
is what I do.
The average person can't do it. I know I couldn't do it.
Either.
Okay, come to me. I'll give you my number.
From a PR marketing standpoint for Apple right now, if they are found to be a tax avoider, how bad is that for their company?
Nothing. I mean, what do you think? Look, you think we're not going to buy the phone and the products anymore? No, nobody likes the IRS. Nobody likes paying taxes, and they think that the system is bad. So I think they're going to get sympathy and empathy. I don't think anyone's going to think they're bad.
I don't think anybody's going to care. Oh, the Apple's having an IRS problem. I'm not going to buy Apple because of IRS.
Well,
Who cares?
if they specifically were avoiding
no, I don't think anybody's going to care about that
like
either.
you said, it's not illegal. but it may be unethical.
I think so far already, after the testimonial from Tim Cook, the sentiment seems to be that, you know, we're on Apple's side. The average consumer is on Apple's side, and they're looking at Congress and saying, you wrote the law, change it.
Let's talk about Apple as a company overall and life after Steve Jobs. Where do you see the company going?
I would like to see the company totally United States and everything made in the United States. So hopefully this perhaps will make that happen. I mean, even if they feel they're perceived that they were tax dodgers or maybe they did something wrong, perhaps Apple will say, okay, you know what? We want to do business in the United States. However, we want the corporate tax lower, which is basically what the CEO said. And that would be great. There'd be a lot of money and a lot of jobs for Americans.
Yeah. But what kind of jobs, like you said, $10 an hour jobs, or $100,000 an hour jobs?
But a $10 an hour job is good for somebody.
I know, but some people, if they making $25 an hour, $10 an hour is not going to help them.
But I would also, it's better than nothing, though, too.
Well, some people rather make nothing.
And
than
there's always going to be a range.
They pay all the taxes here, which is so much money for
well, that's
our country.
true.
Well,
Just to keep
Paul,
the money here.
Let me go ask you that question also. For Apple, life after Steve Jobs, where do you see the company going?
I mean, they've proven it over and over again. They're an incredible company. They continue to diversify and fill the needs and wants of the worldwide consumer for sure. And I don't think they don't want to do business in the United States. They're a United States company, but it just needs to be more conducive for them in order to do so.
Well, why do you think the tone then of the hearing has been so drastically different from that of the IRS? Like, why are we seeing such? Why do we see Congress going after Apple?
I think they got caught, you know, let's say with their proverbial pants down, and it was brought to light that there are hundreds of millions of dollars that are not being accounted for or left off the table, or we're not benefiting from it, and we have no tax revenue coming from those monies. And then they said, well, wait a second, but why is that? It's not because Apple is breaking the law, it's because they're following.
It's a system that the government has set up, and they've made the best use of it as they could.
Take advantage of the laws as you
That's
can.
right.
The laws are here, so my job is to help you circumvent the laws and use the laws to the best of your ability, and my ability to help you pay as less tax as possible. That's my job.
And they're doing the same thing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your expertise and your time. Wonderful panel today. And we thank our panel for joining us, and we thank you for spending an hour with us here on Fresh Outlook, where we take a look at the news affecting you. I'm Toschi. Have a terrific week. We'll see you back here next week.